A very good morning to all our dear listeners. This is 91.2 FM, the community radio station of Uttarakhand Open University, Hello Haldwani. Today, on the occasion of International Women's Day, we wish all our dear listeners a very happy Women's Day. And we are absolutely delighted to present a special broadcast, especially for all our women listeners, that lauds and celebrates the myriad contributions and achievements of women down the ages, particularly in the realm of literature and activism. Today, we shine a spotlight on the remarkable contributions of women writers and activists whose voices and writings have challenged stereotypes, shaped narratives and inspired generations. I am Suchitra Awasthi, and with me to discuss women and women matters, pun intended, are my colleagues Dr. Megha Pant, Dr. Natasha Negi and Ms. Nitika Kannojia. As we celebrate International Women's Day, it is imperative that we acknowledge and celebrate women down the ages. We begin today's program by voyaging through the annals of feminist thoughts and expression, and have with us here today Dr. Megha Pant, who would be sharing with our listeners the history of feminist thought. So Dr. Megha, welcome to the program.
Thank you, ma'am. Feminism is the belief in the social, economic and political equality between men and women. It is not one particular idea. It is a system of ideas that examines the roots and reasons of women's subordination in relation to male masculine privilege. Feminism is based on two premises. The first one is gender difference is the foundation of a structural inequality between men and women, due to which women suffer social injustice. The second one is the inequality between the sexes is not because of biological necessity but is produced by the cultural construction of gender differences. The sexes, male and female, are biological identities based on human anatomy, while gender is a cultural construct such that women are told to behave in certain culturally defined ways. The women should be domestic, tender, should like to wear pink color, should be a good housewife, should not be aggressive, whereas men are told to behave in certain social constructs like if you are a man, you should not cry, you should be aggressive. So, gender is a product of cultural conditioning. Patriarchy imposes that nature and culture have made men superior to women, and thus the inequality between men and women is practiced in society. Now, we will talk about four waves of feminism. The first wave came around late 19th and early 20th century. It was mostly concerned about women's right to vote. Before it, women were not allowed to vote. It also advocated equal property rights and opposed ownership of married women by their husbands. You can say Seneca Falls Convention or Women's Voting Conventions is the starting point of feminism. Feminism starts with 1848 convention that happened at the Wesleyan Chapel in Seneca Falls in New York. This place is the birthplace of feminism. Seneca Falls Convention happened on 19th and 20th of July, and there were many women leaders who emerged that time. The convention brought hundreds of people together. It never before in the history of women had happened in the context of United States. It launched women's voting rights or suffrage movement in America. Finally, they got voting rights in 1920 in America. This happened in England and Europe also. It was modeled on the American Declaration of Independence and inaugurated the first wave of feminism. So, Natasha, could you tell us more about the thinkers which you know from the first wave of feminism so that our listeners could understand better?
Yes, Megha, I think the first wave of feminism is a culmination of women's writings for their freedom. For example, Simone de Beauvoir's views about first wave are, I quote, "It is first time when women took a pen against patriarchy," unquote. And I think our learners can also refer to texts by Mary Wollstonecraft, for example, her work A Vindication of the Rights of Women, or J.S. Mill's work The Subjection of Women. These are the best examples of first wave feminism.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for familiarizing our listeners with the names and works of the first wave feminists. So let's move to the second wave. Second wave of feminism, which is a cultural movement, occurred in 1960s and 1970s. It refers to women's liberation movement for equal legal and social rights. It had the slogan, "The personal is political." It focused on biology, experience, discourse, unconsciousness, socio-economic conditions, domestic violence, and birth control. Betty Friedan was the most representative figure of second wave. In Feminine Mystique, Betty Friedan criticized the idea that women could find fulfillment only through child rearing and homemaking. Next, we have the third wave of feminism, which began in early 1980s. The third wave of feminism criticized the second wave of feminism because, according to the feminists, second wave focused only on the experiences of upper middle class white women. So, in the third wave of feminism, women of all races, ethnicity, class, religions were given equal importance. Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own and Toril Moy's Sexual Textual Politics are the best examples of the third wave of feminism. The fourth wave of feminism seeks greater gender equality. It argues for equal pay for equal work. Women begin to speak up and share their experiences such as sexual abuse, sexual harassment, sexual violence, body shaming, the objectification of women, and sexism in the workplace. Internal activism took various forms like the Me Too movement. Fourth wave further emphasizes on the complex and intersecting ways in which power works on women, which led to concepts like intersectionality. So, Nitika, could you tell us about intersectional feminism?
Sure, Megha. The term intersectionality was coined by civil rights activist and professor Kimberly Crenshaw and can be defined as a quote, "the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage," unquote. By adding the idea of intersectionality to feminism, the movement becomes truly inclusive and allows women of all races, economic standings, religions, identities, and orientations for their voices to be heard. Intersectionality in feminist theory is the predominant way of conceptualizing the relation between systems of oppression that construct our multiple identities and our social locations in hierarchies of power and privilege.
Thank you, Nitika, for wonderful explanation.
So thank you, Dr. Megha, for sharing with our listeners such important and insightful information on the various shades and phases of feminism in such a lucid and succinct manner. And thank you, Dr. Natasha, for interjecting such relevant questions as well. Now, Dr. Natasha Negi will be shedding light on ecofeminism. Not only is ecofeminism an extremely important thought, but it is also a very significant lens through which parallels between exploitation of nature and oppression of women is examined by drawing parallels. So, Dr. Natasha, can you please begin by explaining to our listeners what ecofeminism is in a nutshell?
Thank you, ma'am. So, when we talk about ecofeminism, I think we should first know eco-criticism. Eco-criticism or ecological literary criticism is a combination of ecology and literature. Ecofeminism as a branch of feminism is related to ecology, originated in the 1970s and which flourished in the 1990s. The term ecofeminism was first coined in 1974 by a radical feminist Francois de Aubon. Ecofeminism is a new critical school out of the ecological crisis belonging to interdisciplinary studies. According to Ariel Saller, ecological feminism is, I quote, a recent development in feminist thought which argues that the current global environmental crisis is an outcome of patriarchal culture, unquote. According to Greta Gard in her book Ecological Politics, Ecofeminists and the Greens, ecofeminism is based on the theory that the oppression of women and the oppression of nature are fundamentally linked. Now, according to Greta Gard, there are some major schools of feminism like radical, liberal, social, activist and also cultural ecofeminism. So this classification is mainly according to its different sources of feminist thoughts. So Nitika, from your experience, could you further elaborate how women particularly are more at a loss along with the environmental degradation that all of us are facing today?
Yes, Natasha. Many data sets highlight that financially deprived women living in economically developing nations are disproportionately affected by environmental issues such as natural disasters, deforestation, and even water pollution. Political scientists account for this disproportionate impact due to a number of factors created and sustained under patriarchal systems. This includes that women are more likely to live in poverty. Women have less access to basic human rights such as the ability to move freely to avoid the effects of environmental problems. And women are more likely to face systematic violence, a risk that increases during periods of environmental, economic, or political instability.
I completely agree with you, Nitika. This is why the major goal of ecofeminists is to eliminate hierarchies and deconstruct the logic of domination. Ecofeminists believe women have a closer relationship with nature than men. On the social and physical level, women are involved in farming lands, child raising, and caring for nature. So they infer that women are connected with nature. The first critical strategy they share is to deconstruct androcentrism and anthropocentrism. So, androcentrism is the practice of placing a masculine point of view at the center of one's worldview, culture, and history, and thereby culturally marginalizing femininity. And anthropocentrism criticizes that human beings are the central or most significant entities in the world and thus are biased towards the non-human world. Another agreement of ecofeminists is that they believe man's twin domination over women and nature are connected and thus should be studied in order to overcome the oppression of women. So, moving to the Indian ecofeminist discourse, the Indian ecofeminist activist Vanna Shiva's book Ecofeminism views climate change as a feminist issue. She hails from Dehradun, Uttarakhand and is an Indian social activist. According to Shiva, women and nature have an intricate and intimate relationship, as well as a shared history on the grounds of a common experience of exploitation, degradation, and domination by androcentric attitude. In this context, Vanna Shiva gives the example of Chipko movement, which was the first epoch-making movement in which the women of the Garhwal district in the Himalayas protested against the commercial felling of trees by hugging the trees. So, Dr. Megha, would you like to share some information about the Chipko movement and the role of women in it?
Yes, Natasha. The Chipko movement was a non-violent agitation in 1973 that was aimed at protection and conservation of trees, but perhaps it is best remembered for the collective mobilization of women for the cause of preserving forests, which also brought about a change in the attitude regarding their own status in society. The Chipko movement can essentially be called a women's movement, women being solely in charge of cultivation, livestock and children, lost all they had because of floods and landslides, caused due to rise in deforestation in the face of urbanization. The Chipko movement also gained attraction under Sundar Lal Bahuguna, an eco-activist who spent his life persuading and educating the villagers to protest against the destruction of the forests and Himalayan mountains. Bahuguna is best remembered for the slogan, "Ecology is the permanent economy."
Thank you, Megha, for sharing the information. However, I believe we must also understand that women's interaction with nature and their responses to environmental degradation must be analyzed and located also within the material reality of gender, caste, class, and race. Moreover, women are not just victims of environmental degradation but are also active agents in the regeneration and protection of the environment. I think today's talk would become much more meaningful with the discussion of the application of ecofeminist theories in literary texts.
So thank you, Dr. Natasha, Ms. Nitika and Dr. Megha for delivering such a thought-provoking talk on ecofeminism. Your insights have been really very enlightening and also deeply inspiring. Last but not the least, we have Ms. Nitika Kannojia with us, who would be sharing her views and insights on women and women matters. And mainly she would be shedding light on some seminal literary texts by women writers. So it's over to you, Ms. Nitika.
Thank you, ma'am. I think since the advent of ecofeminist and eco-critical movements, the world has started looking at feminist writings in a new light. And writers like Mary Wollstonecraft, Jane Austen, Virginia Woolf, Maya Angelou, Sylvia Plath, Anne Radcliffe, and so many others who have written so much on feminism, their works are always being re-evaluated from time to time. It is vain to expect virtue from women till they are in the same degree independent of men. This line is from the famous work A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by Mary Wollstonecraft, who is often considered the mother of modern feminism. This groundbreaking work is considered a classic of feminism. Wollstonecraft argues that women are not naturally inferior to men, rather, societal constraints limit their potential. She advocates for equal education for both genders, emphasizing reason as the key to empowerment. The book calls for a radical transformation of women's role in society. Another exemplary writer, Sylvia Plath, who is known for her conventional poetry, she often employs natural imagery to mirror female experiences. Her poems resonate with the cycles of nature: birth, growth, decay, and regeneration. In one of her poems, Child, she compares the process of childbirth to the blooming of a flower. As I quote, "Your clear eye is the one absolutely beautiful thing. I want to fill it with colors and ducks," unquote. By intertwining female bodies with natural elements, Plath underscores the primal connection between women and earth. I read Nectar in a Sieve by Kamala Markandeya when I was pursuing post-graduation, and it is such an enriching story about the character Rukmini. Markandeya does not romanticize nature. Instead, she reveals its harsh realities. Rukmini's misery unfolds due to her infertility, mirroring the vulnerability inherent in natural processes. The novel portrays the dual aspects of nature, both nurturing and unforgiving. In another example, in Arundhati Roy's novel, The God of Small Things, it subtly weaves ecofeminist themes into its narratives, revealing the interconnectedness of women, nature, and societal power structures. Her vivid descriptions of nature and the characters' interactions with the environment invite readers to contemplate the delicate balance between human existence and the natural world. My dear friend Megha, I am sure you must have read this story. Do you reckon any particular instance from this story?
Yes, Nitika, I want to share the instance in which Amu's affair with Velutha, a lower caste man, challenges societal norms. Their secret meetings by the river become a space where they can momentarily escape their predetermined roles. The forbidden love affair disrupts the hierarchical dualisms that perpetuate oppression.
Thank you, Megha. This example shows how the writer has used river as an escape from reality. We also have Adrienne Rich, and through her poem Diving into the Wreck, she has rather subtly touched on the topic. When she writes, and as I quote, "First, having read the book of myths and loaded the camera and checked the edge of the knife blade, I put on the body armor of black rubber, the absurd flippers, the grave and awkward mask." Unquote. Now, Natasha, what are your views on these lines?
Well, Nitika, I think the speaker's descent into the wreck symbolizes a feminist journey, an exploration of hidden truths and submerged histories. Just as women's experiences have been marginalized, the wreck lies forgotten beneath the surface. Also, Rich's poem becomes an act of reclaiming and revealing. The wreck also represents the remnants of a male-dominated past, a history of oppression and silencing. And moreover, the tools carried by the diver, which are camera, knife, book, all these mirror the tools of patriarchy. The camera captures truth, the knife cuts through the layers, and the book records the narrative.
Thanks, Natasha. I think your views sum up these lines very aptly. And towards the end, I would like to recite a short poem by Kishwar Naheed titled The Grass is Also Like Me. The grass is also like me. As soon as it can raise its head, the land mower, obsessed with flattening it into velvet, mows it down again. How you strive and endeavor to level woman down too. But neither the earth's nor women's desire to manifest life dies.
So that was a wonderful way of ending your talk, Miss Nitika. I'm really captivated by the grass metaphor. It has been used by various writers down the ages. Like I remember Walt Whitman, he chooses grass as a symbol of democracy, and Vandana Shiva also time and again focuses on the resilience of grass. So thank you so much for enlightening our listeners with your wonderful talk and for giving such relevant information on foundational texts by some of the women writers. Due to time constraint, it is time for us to conclude the program. Hello Haldwani would like to thank all our guest speakers, Dr. Megha, Dr. Natasha and Ms. Nitika, for sharing their views and important insights on women and women matters, pun intended. We would also like to thank all our listeners for their patient listening and hope that this program has enhanced their understanding of feminism, particularly in the realm of literature. Feminism is like a vast ocean, encompassing myriad currents, depths, dimensions of thoughts and action. However, due to paucity of time, we could just touch upon a few important aspects. But we hope to catch up with all our audience and our listeners sometime soon again. To conclude, on this International Women's Day, we salute, honor, and celebrate all the remarkable women who grace our lives with their strengths, resilience, and brilliance. May we, the women who share bonds of sisterhood, continue to uplift and empower one another, not just today, but each and every day of our lives, as we strive for a world where gender equity is not a dream, but a reality. Thank you, one and all, and a very happy Women's Day. Thank you.